Let me call together the Harwich Affordable Trust Committee meeting for November 6th already. It's 1 o'clock, Bob, for your, so I don't forget that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And let me say that this is a special meeting. Our next regular scheduled meeting will be November 20th. But we wanted to, we talked last meeting about moving ahead on an application for those seeking funds for affordable housing. And we talked about doing that last week. It got delayed a couple days, but I'd like to, and that's our sole agenda item today is to do that. Before we start that, I do wish to thank Mary Anderson very much for all her help with our committee. As you know, she decided to leave the select board, which I think we're all disappointed in, but for her it was the right choice. I celebrated with her with a beer last week. I'm thinking we need a next selectmen's committee over beer. And she's doing well, but we'll miss her now. I copied her on this. She still wants to be involved, and she has good insight. And so obviously as a public person, she can still be very much involved with our committee. So she will continue to pay attention to us and help us out when she can. But we wish her the best, and we appreciate very much the time she spent with the committee and all the service to the town. Not only selectmen, but I repeat what everyone here knows over and over again. She's been an integral part of the town through the family pantry for years and years. So she does a lot more than a role of selectman. But on to the agenda then. As I said, we talked a week ago, our last meeting, about how could we best move ahead so that we were not provided any barriers for those seeking funds from the Harwich Trust, Affordable Housing Trust. What we did, and Brendan took the first great step, is he found a Falmouth application form and review that we discussed, and I took the liberty of stealing that form, if you will, which I'm okay with that. I think you should steal from other forms, and basically because it's been tried and used, and so I basically took that Falmouth application form and modified it to say Harwich Affordable Housing Trust. And you note I've given you copies of that. We'll include it in the website if we so you have that. And it's very straightforward. I also took from the same website a review process to give some criteria for how we review it. And I sent around then an example of what a financial statement would look like. And that one is as we'll discuss, is the most difficult, and I would only start that part of the discussion. We'll go step by step. That part of the discussion saying that what I sent on that was an example, and it's going to have to be modified somewhat case by case. So those are the three items that I sent my fellow committee members. And if you will, let's start with the Housing Trust application.
So should we use the word?
Use the word one.
The one that you sent?
Use
Okay,
the please the word, because that one I've corrected.
Okay, great.
Bruce, you guys want to share this, and then if you will, can you, when you're done, can you give it back to me, and we'll put it on the web, we'll send it to you.
Does anybody else want one? I can use my computer, yeah.
Okay.
It would be hard to. Thanks. It's hard to follow.
I should have printed out some copies, but I think,
This is great.
Brendan, you want to start with comments?
I mean, do you want to just run through it?
Yeah.
Page by page?
Yep.
Affordable Housing Trust. I didn't see anything really on the first page that jumped out. Everything seemed fine.
Just,
Yeah, let's do
just for the
let's
audience.
do page
just
by page.
Do it page by page. And
Yeah.
the first page is For the application, it's general information, project name, so forth, mailing, contact person. The second one is property ownership. And then that continues on to development team, those that are applying for the funding. I don't want to go too fast on this. but
No,
that's-
because I think, I'm not sure if I gave Liz the right thing.
I have the money.
That's the pro
Yeah, you've got
forma.
the pro forma, hold on. Is this,
It'll look like this.
all right,
Yeah,
lots,
can work together.
all right. Sorry, Liz,
Don't worry.
I don't think I printed that one out.
Yes, that fixed sentence.
The second terms of information is describe proposed project, including project style, types of units, condo ownership, fee ownership, so on, numbers of units, number of market, affordable units, and a description of how you see this going. Next one is site information, which are all the questions that we ask, and we've been asking in our discussions. And then we ask for an idea of the total project cost, the amount of the funding that you request from the trust. I'm pausing because it seems like I'm going too fast. But
That's
Nope.
okay.
We're good.
Liz and Art, I guess you can't, but you can see what I'm saying. Bruce and Richard, if you have any comments, just speak up.
No, not at this time. Richard.
Go ahead, Richard.
Things like the question of, and I'll go to the mic so it can be.
Please identify yourself for our clerk. Thank
Richard
you.
Waystack, Harwich. One of the questions on percentage of AMI, that should be a given, for any project that's there.
Has to be
You can
100%
only,
on ours, yeah.
right, you can only give out, money to those that are at 80% or less AMI. And looking down towards it, Board of Health, zoning, et cetera, those things are gonna have to be done through the permitting process anyway. So and my question is, do you want to get involved with that as part of the application into the permitting process?
Well, that's a good question. I think what we can say is that those are underway or something, so we cover the form. We don't expect those answers at the moment, because that's the way it would work. Right?
Yeah, I just in the last couple of meetings, and the discussion of an application is relatively simple. 3 pages, and when you get into some of the Board of Health and the zoning, et cetera, it complicates it, and depending on who's sitting in your chair, Mr. Chairman, it's, well, we want more information from Board of Health and zoning, et cetera.
Let me suggest to you, Richard, that that might depend on the applicant. You're at the beginning stage.
Yeah.
We could have an applicant with someone who's already involved, moving forward, have some of those. I can think of one now that might be interested, that has a lot of that, actually has started those processes. It would be useful information.
Sure, no, I get it, I just sharing my comments.
Yeah.
And then site information, we've asked those questions before, request. And then a list of other funding sources that's available. That's after the amount they're requesting from the Housing Trust.
Larry,
Yes, Bob?
on that one, list all public funding sources and indicate funding application dates. Do we want to ask for those funding sources that are in process, requests that are in process, or requests and anticipated? In process and anticipated, is that?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. We could add that.
So it's for like something that they haven't started yet, but we want to know what their intention is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that would be in their performer, so if they were going for CPC funds,
It would be listed in
Right.
that.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like if you're going to every town for funding, I think that's what 19 West did in Orleans. They went to every town to try to get funding. So they have the dates on their pro forma, when those boards are meeting and when the applications were due, so.
I can add that, requested in process and completed.
That sounds great.
public and private? Or do we just care about public?
I think our focus is on public, so.
Well, the pro forma's gonna show where all the funding's
Where
coming
funding
from.
Okay,
So I don't think it really matters, but like I said, if we're gonna be giving out some money, I think it'd be nice to know how they're gonna get to the end point.
right.
So I'd like to see the private and the,
Let's just delete the word public.
Okay,
okay, there you go. Yep,
Okay.
that works.
Next one is project feasibility. And this I need to modify, it refers to, that I don't have in here. But, it's, application and the, example of pro forma that I added. I think the next one's important, and that is how much community outreach has taken place and what do they have planned. Development schedule, what, I think that's one we've talked over and over again. And that I know, Mary Anderson, I mentioned her before, and she did comment that one of her concerns on this application, that somehow, not sure where you build it in here or the pro forma or where, but we need some assurance that the project's going to be completed, that the schedule makes sense. And I'm not quite sure how we get at that, but that's the thing I know, Brendan, you've mentioned several times as well to me.
Yeah,
I think we have to put that in as development schedule and see if that schedule makes sense and that it's realistic. And then, so that's it. So it's a pretty straightforward form. And I'm sure as we learn, and I know Brianna keeps looking at things as well, I'm sure as we learn going forward, we'll improve this. But again, what I wanted in what we as a committee talked last time is be sure that at least we weren't holding anything back.
Right. Right.
Because I think we have one, I know of two people who may be interested in applying for funds. And we should open that up, and then we could, this doesn't mean they get funds, by the way. We need to be certain about that. We could get all this and say, it doesn't fit. But there you go. Bob?
Yeah.
The only spelling error that I found was Brianna's email address. So I think we need to fix that.
We absolutely do, because they can't email it, Brian.
oh, B, yeah,
You
We're-
were,
so you
I'll
switch the
certainly-
B and the P, yeah.
That's the most important one, so I'll certainly get that right.
You're gonna get that right.
thank you.
It's on the one.
It's
yeah.
BP, I
Yeah,
got it
yeah,
backwards.
you get those backwards, yeah.
Okay. I shall fix that.
Yeah.
Any other, Liz, please.
Hi, Elizabeth Harder, Harwich. I sort of agree with Richard that the AMI has got to be at least 25%. So, but if you're going to put that there, what I think you should also put in, because this goes to community outreach, is percentage of, oh Lord, Richard, what's it called? Local preference. And local preference and regional preference. So, thank you.
Yeah, help me out
I
with
was,
that.
I was gonna, go ahead, you can take it.
Yeah, help me out with that, because I'm
Yeah.
not sure what control we have.
Well,
with
I
it.
don't know if you're gonna like what I have to say. I'm sorry.
I-
But so Brianna Powell, housing advocate.
Yeah.
So I just want to start off by saying that I love the enthusiasm that this board has, and that you're so committed to keeping things moving. But with that being said, I do want to just share my opinion, and just keep in mind that this document is one that you're going to use for the long term for any developer applying, not just one or two, for all of them. So I think it's important that you rely on the great resources that you have, like Laura Schufelt at MHP, Town Council, J.M. Goldson. I know you have a contract with her, even if it's to just have her take a peek at it. I think the conversation is good about it. And there's certainly other processes from other towns that are great to learn from. But I think the trusts that really are succeeding are the ones that are taking the time to do their due diligence and make sure that what they're putting out there is a good reflection of what fits their town specifically and their trust and board specifically. And I know it can be frustrating. I get it. I'm frustrated all the time about how long certain things take. It's ultimately you guys' decision as a trust, but that was just my opinion on all of this.
Can you speak to what those, changes and recommendations would be from your perspective as the housing advocate?
I don't have experience in this.
Okay.
So I reached out to people who do, and their suggestion is really just take the time to work on it, have council review it with you. Don't just jump into putting something out unless you know it's gonna work long-term for any person or any developer applying. So we can certainly look at what that looks like. I know Brett and I were gonna initially meet and kind of work on it together, but that, it moved a little faster than that, I think. And like I said, I appreciate the enthusiasm. I just want to make sure that this is something that you guys feel great about putting out for future developers applying, not just right now.
So from a, can I?
Sure.
From a process standpoint, is there something in terms of policy that says we can't put something out and then revise it as we go?
Nope, absolutely, I don't believe so.
I just want to be clear.
Don't quote me on that, but I don't believe so. I think you can probably revise it if you wanted to, but I think that to avoid any sort of like preferential treatment or anything like that, you're gonna want to put something out that you're gonna use long-term, not just for one developer and then change it for the next.
Yeah. I mean, I can't speak for the committee, but I know we wouldn't do that.
Of course,
But
right.
of course, when we know there's people waiting and we have a process in place and something that people can address, obviously,
Right.
that has been our consistent goal.
And I do want to say that a good project right now is still going to be a good project in a few months. It's not going to change. And putting something out a few weeks earlier, just for the sake of getting it out, isn't going to speed up the development of the housing because it does take so long anyways. So anyways, it's ultimately your decision. I just wanted to voice my opinions on it.
No, thank you, Brianna.
Yep.
And we have debated this
Yes.
because Brianna's voiced this to me, and I appreciate the input, and I do share caution. My concern is that things have dragged on for some time, and I'd like to get it moving, and I think if we can modify it, if we go forward, and I personally felt fairly, well, not fairly, I feel comfortable if we've Falmouth and I think we have some other towns that have basically the same application form, that we can't go too far wrong. But again, Brianna, thanks for you. It's okay, we debate. Yeah. Art?
Art Bowden, Harwich. My comment has to do with my experience with the County Home Consortium. And they get an X number of dollars every year, basically from HUD. They get somewhere around $500,000. Not a lot of money when it comes to housing. But they go through the same process for people that coming in with an application. And I've shared some of these with Brian, I'm sorry.
Whoever it is.
Brendan, pardon me, on the process. And he usually, the average application, they usually award $200,000 to $300,000. So it's in the big scheme of things, it's not a lot of money, but to them, to the Home Consortium, it is a lot of money. And they really do a deep dive on these. So they have a regular process they go through. And now has, what, 2 or 3 I gave you, outlines of current projects that they've just gone through the review process. And it gives you, chapter and verse, everything they check on and look for. And they have a rating system. So they rate every application that comes before them because they get many applications. And it has to meet a certain level. If it doesn't, meet a certain level, numeric level, then they don't get any funding. But most of them do because they know what they have to shoot for. But anyways, that would be a good thing to start with, just to kind of look at and see what is out there. Because it's not for the project before you, it's future projects, and it covers a whole myriad of things. And it's amazing how you know, and what they do is they break off into subcommittees. They have one individual that does all the analytical work, and then they have a subcommittee that breaks out and looks over that person's shoulder. Now, I don't think you have to get that definitive, but it demonstrates, you know, you want to make sure your monies are going to be well spent. And like the thing you pointed out is very important, is it a viable project, and when is it going to end, and when is it going to be completed? And that's a question that's very important. You know, if someone comes in and they don't know when it's going to end, they're not getting any money. Thank you.
Any other comments? Richard?
Just if I can, I appreciate all the hard work that our housing advocate is doing on behalf of the town and housing. And it's rare that I ever disagree with her, but in this case I will. This has been going on for a while, attending the meetings and going back to the first discussion of the Affordable Housing Trust being able to give grants out. And that was now pushing 3 months past that I first heard it at a select board's meeting. And at the time, it was, we're going to do an application, we're going to do a process. It's frustrating as a taxpayer who was involved in assisting with the Marceline or the 124 property that the town has bought, and still being frustrated by lack of action. So I would encourage you to act. You've got an application that was done by our friends over in Falmouth. I know the gentleman personally who was involved in creating some of that work over there. They never let their foot off the gas pedal. They kept pushing to see that we can get housing done. And you've got some projects in front of you that are ready to go, and we need the funding. So I would ask you to act upon your application today and take the next step and create what's going to be the review process for the application, so this committee and the town can show something that has been done with this money that's been granted by our taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Other comments? Bob? Claudia?
I guess just the only one is that I know we've looked at other towns and tried to kind of cross-reference a bit as well, so I think I've always been a proponent of not reinventing the wheel if it's at all possible, so.
Brandon?
I'm good right now, thank you.
Larry,
Go ahead.
I do have a comment. I think that the saying is something along the lines of perfect is the enemy of the good, and I think that fits here. I don't think that we can come out of the gate with any expectation that it's going to be perfect. But we know how to change the next iteration, and we know how to indicate that on the forms. And I think good should be our target.
Well, I'm obviously for moving ahead regardless of the risks we take. And I don't want to be overwhelmed with enthusiasm, but on the other hand, I don't want to be the barrier for things happening. So I think at that point, there's no discussion. What we need is a motion to move ahead with the application form if so desired.
I make that motion?
With the changes.
With the changes that way, the email address right and so on, yes.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we can do that, and we can move it then to the website, and that will get us started, so it's out there. The next one was the thing I sent was the application review process. And this is very short, again, this is taken from a film, I just cut out a bunch of references they made, but it's I can just read this, since I'm the only one that has this, I guess. You have this review, they'll be reviewed by us, the trust, and preliminary review begins with the applicant submitting a letter of intent to the housing advocate, who conducts a preliminary screening based solely on receipt of complete letter of intent, consistency with the purposes of the Harwich Affordable Housing Trust, consistency with the purposes of the Community Preservation Act, or other funding source. Put that in because many of these do get CPC funding. The housing advocate will make every effort to complete this preliminary review within 10 days of receipt of the letter of intent and notify the applicant of the eligibility decision. Then that's, are invited to submit the full application. Application review, the Housing Trust application is submitted to the housing applicant, notifies us. The housing advocate distributes the project application to the relevant town departments for review and comment, which is dependent on the size, complexity of the project. They do state that a consultant may be needed to conduct a financial review, since that may be on the expertise. Housing applicant, and your name, you come up with a lot on this, so. The housing applicant prepares an application summary and assembles relevant information, staff comments, and then the Housing Trust evaluates the project feasibility, ability, the degree to which it meets the priorities of the Housing Trust and available funds. The Housing Trust may accept, reject, amend, or return for further study such recommendations. The applicant is notified of the trust funding decision, and the housing advocate facilitates preparation of a commitment letter in consultation with town council, the town administrator's office, and the applicant. So that's a brief step that we would do. It's not a lot of detail in there, but it does say that it gives us some process to go by. Any comments on that? Any spelling errors?
We need approval by
I would,
administrator and housing advocate.
we do, I don't, well, that's a good question. At the end, we need their, at least their support, because it will go all through the procurement some of this stuff. So, yeah, we want their involvement. We don't, by our trust, its bylaws itself say we don't. We are in charge of, we have fidelity responsibility ourselves. So we can move without that. I think as part of the town, we want to work with them to be sure that they're on board, just as a practical matter, if that makes sense.
And if this is realistic to expect, yeah.
Yeah. You read the bylaws that created us, we can't act. I don't think we want to go out too, we want help, we want to accept help. Did I not answer that okay?
No, you did, I wasn't sure, maybe as a follow-up question, is this something we can vote on, or is this something we need to check out with, those that we have the time on to make sure that that's,
I don't know, Brianna, you want to review this before we put it on the website?
I don't mind reviewing it, and do you want me to bring it to Joe to review as well, or
You
just
can.
me? Okay, sure.
We can put the application now, that gets us started.
Okay, I'll work with Joe, you can send it to me, we'll have it, I'll work with Joe and we'll take a peek at it.
Okay. You okay with that, Bob?
I'm a little uncomfortable with it.
With this or with going?
With this.
Okay,
I'm a little uncomfortable that we're delegating to folks that are outside of the trust responsibility for doing things on behalf of the trust.
okay.
And that's in no way to question the ability or the integrity of those people. But it doesn't feel quite right. So I've been trying to get my head around it. We don't control the housing advocate's schedule. We don't control her workflow.
Right.
Others oversee that and define what the priorities are. So that's,
Maybe it's more of, it's up to the trust if they want to consider to bring in. So the important part of having health, conservation, building, ZBA, take a look at all of this. If someone comes with a project, there could be some limitations to what you can do with the land, with health or conservation bill. I could see us vetting that out just to make sure that we have a viable applicant.
Indeed.
So maybe the language just could be changed,
Maybe we can soften the language.
soften
say,
the language that it's to our
support-
discretion if we need.
Or, yeah, seeking support or something.
Yeah.
I can soften the language to take that in, that it's still, it's not a requirement, but we're asking for support.
Well, it goes back to having an application that's fair to everybody. So if we did it for one person, do we do it for the next person, and so on? So we have to be careful with the language.
Right.
Okay. That makes sense to me, if we could soften it so that,
Yeah.
let me do that and send it, and we can bring it up again then. How's that sound?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I think that was my concern too, is it's
Right.
outside of ours, so
Control.
how can we make sure that
We don't
that's-
need, yeah, we don't need to vote again after
No.
revisions.
No,
Okay.
we can do that.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay.
I'll take that. Any other comments on this? Richard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. I went through the process, letter of intent. That goes through staff then, rather than to you as chair? So if a letter of intent from a project comes forward, is that being emailed out to the?
I'm gonna change that after this discussion, have it come to me.
Okay, that's fine.
Or ask support
Right.
from the chair. That will simplify that.
And the term staff review is all encompassing. It could be a lot of people, but to the point is the timeline, it could get dragged on.
Which we don't want it to.
Correct.
That's the whole purpose of it.
And you have, as you have done from what I've seen, you have brought parties in to speak to them as a board, to interview them about the project. And should things be outstanding, whether it be zoning, Board of Health, process within the town, you can then send them back out again. That's under your purview, under your bylaws. So you have the control, and you, back to your point, you control the workflow if it comes through you. If you abdicate that back to staff, no, again, no disrespect to our staff, but things can get bogged down. The select board may say, we want the staff working in different directions, but your bylaws allow you to do this work. So that if you control it, and if you need additional assistance from staff, you can request it, but it's under your timeline, it's under your workflow, it's under your authority.
I'll take that and I'll modify it with those suggestions, you know.
Thank you.
Richard, while you're talking, I'm thinking that, what you suggest is that we follow the, model that CPC now follows. Which it comes to, you know, Dave Nixon's as chair, then they call people in to explain it. And then they ask for staff support where it's necessary.
Yeah.
The one major difference is you don't make a recommendation to the town meeting. You make
Right,
a
we have
decision.
that. But
You have the
process
authority to
is-
make the decision.
I will do that, and then email it to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it sounds good.
The last one I sent was an attempt at showing some of the financial criteria, and I'm still not happy with that. And I think, Brendan, you may have some easier, simpler,
I mean,
it
yeah, we
lists
could,
everything.
yeah, we don't expect someone to fill out that
But this is an
form.
example.
Yeah.
This is the one that probably, trying to be sure we get the financial information that we need without getting carried away.
I mean, it's just a sample, so you could take what you wanted in your application.
At
No.
this point, I would use it as, say sample.
Yeah, because you want to get your soft costs, hard costs, and get your budget in line where your funding sources are coming from. So I think what you sent out does have that. But like I said, that's just a sample.
Bob?
Whatever we get back, we can always ask for more.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
Because the questions are pretty, I think, straightforward. Are they going to get it done? It's financially reasonable, not to oversimplify it. But. So we'll move ahead with that, and we voted once, so we don't, I'll make those corrections, and then I'll work to see if we can get it on the web.
Yeah.
Sure, Bruce.
Bruce Young, I'm the president of the Harwich Fire Association, and just about this financial statement, we are a benevolent fund, we're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we do have, our taxes filed and all of that on the benevolent side, our letter drive and our fundraising on that side, but for the 203 Bank Street, most of that has been done by fundraising. So we don't really have a financial statement yet for that project. So I'm not quite sure, if that is part of this, is gonna be part of this package, what you would want me to fill out.
I think fill out what you have available to you.
Yeah.
I mean, I can give
It's
you
not
what we've raised so far in donations.
Right. And then what your expectation is,
Yes, CPC
Yeah,
and,
CPC.
and the whole thing.
in our future fundraising and grant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
And put it against what your total budget will be for the project to finish to date.
okay. Thank you so much.
We don't want to kill anyone without, you know, want the information as best we can. Any other comments? I'm looking at Bob, because he's been unusually quiet.
Bob Doan from Harwich. You know, one of the things, I don't know if you've actually gone through and tested all the different types of requests you have that you might think of you might get and whether it fits the application. And I'm thinking of one example, and when you particularly get into financials. Pine Oaks, I think it was 2, maybe it was 1, had no money whatsoever. And so they had the concept that they want to do this, and they went to the, I believe it was the county, gave them a grant of, at the time, it may have been $2,000 to start the process. And of course, it worked out great. But you may have some requests like that, people saying, you know, I have this concept, but I need some seed money to get going. So as long as, if you intend to do something like that, you have to make sure that your application fits that type too. That's it.
Good point.
Thanks.
Do we, I know I saw it somewhere, the question around, you know, have you done a project before, and blah, 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 so
Right.
that we could take into account somebody who's actually done it before, even if they don't have money.
And thank you for that quality. That's the point that Mary made as well. Be sure we have that question
Yeah.
in there somewhere. So I'll be sure to add that.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, that kind of sometimes falls in the RFP, like for the Marceline
That's
property.
where
We're
I
go-
must have, okay,
Right.
that's where,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
RFP is certainly is part of it, but even on this, it might be important to know
Yeah, that's
what the
nice,
experience
okay.
is. Comments, questions? If not, this is a single agenda item, so thanks again. Coming
Thank you.
another day, and that's 2:37,
No, 137.
1:37.
Oh, the clock has run.
Even better.
You've
I'm
got
gonna,
me
I'm gonna
here
have
for
to ask
something.
Bob to keep
You've got
quiet.
me something.
Bob, don't
Move to
talk unless I
adjourn.
speak to you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Taking the time on this.